Hello, lovelies. Right, housekeeping. To reiterate, Ronin will be aiming to kickstart in March of next year. Hopefully all 3 books will be basically ready by then, and extra time can be spent editing and adding and doing various other things with that. So there'll be the main book, the Supernatural Elements book, which will have monsters and additional magic rules and stuff like that, and there will be a solo player's guide. So that's the idea, a 3-book release, which will be the first time I've really done something like that, but hopefully it'll all work out. We shall see. I finished yesterday the next Rack and Ruin, which is on kobolds, and I'll be doing the A/B testing between the two. The first one was for goblins, playing goblins race as class in old school games. This is for playing kobolds race as class in old school games. There's a sort of implicit and gradually building up background and world to it. And so the first one I used AI art because things have been very expensive here recently. So I needed to save money. I didn't do particularly well, but yeah, it happens. Well, I was wondering to what extent that might be because of the use of AI art. I think we need to engage with this and figure out exactly how much of a turn-off it is to any potential audience. So I will release the second book. It's an imperfect test, obviously, but no AI art has been used in it. It's cost me not too much, because I've used quite a bit of stock art and a friend who's an artist to illustrate it, so I got a bit of a discount there, but it's still money as compared to no money. So it will be interesting to see how it does in comparison with me making the point that no AI art was used this time around. So we will see, and I will report back in due course. Tomorrow's game on Sunday should be the newer Robotech game. I'm still waiting for Robotech Homefront for that to actually come out in physical hard copy for people who didn't back it in crowdfunding. It's getting annoying waiting for it. So yeah, hopefully if I can get my head round the fairly abstract system and make up some characters and everything, which I should have done earlier in the week, then we'll be on to that. The pretentious topics have done quite well for me, especially obviously the me hating on Apocalypse World, which was kind of a pretentious topic because it went into a lot of stuff, but otherwise those things have done okay for me. Maybe it's front loading them with self-deprecation that makes it work. I don't know, but if there's any other deeper topics related to RPGs that you want me to go into, because it's very hard for me to decide on a topic and then screw my courage to the mast and actually get it done, because I am deathly afraid of being pretentious. So it takes an enormous amount of psychic effort to do anything that might be seen as pretentious. I think it goes back to being horrendously bullied for liking reading and things as a kid. So I'm constantly aware and want not to be cringe and not to be outed as a brainiac. So yeah, it'll be helpful if anyone has any deeper, more pretentious topics that they would like me to delve into with my quarter century of experience, professionally and longer otherwise. Patreon. So with the changes to Patreon, I didn't think it was going to hit me this hard, but they're changing the subscription model for everybody to conform with Apple, and Apple is also taking a chunk of people's payments. So if you're sub to my Patreon through an Apple device, through the Apple Store, and otherwise now, it's going to have been dicked with. This, combined with the problems I had with the right-wing cancellation the other month, means I've lost quite a bit of my Patreon revenue, which I don't rely on, but it's nice to have a little safety net of a regular basic income coming from Patreon. I still don't really know what to do with Patreon. It is a good way to ensure that I talk to you if you have something you want to ask me or talk about or whatever. It's basically a shortcut and it gets you priority for videos, but otherwise I don't really know what to do with it or how to find the time to do a lot to do with it, but it's just there if anyone wants to support my endeavours more generally month on month. And you know, even $1 a month is good. When I look at the stats for my channel here, like I have 50,000 unique viewers last month, I think, which doesn't seem to make sense when I look at the hits for all the videos, but that's what YouTube is telling me, so maybe their statistics are screwed. And I've got getting on towards 8,000 subs now, slowly but surely getting close to that. You know, if 1% of people who are subscribed, gave me $1 a month on Patreon, that would help enormously, and I would very much appreciate it. If you're stuck to know what to give me for a birthday or Christmas present this year, then $1 or $2 or $5 a month through Patreon would be hugely helpful, because it all adds up. I've been very frustrated this last month because, you know, I'm adult adjacent, given that I work on Tabletop Plus, and I think I'm getting some sort of bleed over with the reach of my social media accounts being increasingly limited due to me posting links indirectly to adult content and being associated with adult creators. So I'm a difficult bugger. I'm not about to stop doing that or backing off from it, but it is frustrating, and I'm only seeing a tiny fraction of the problems that adult creators have with getting reach for their own content, even for people who are enthusiastic about it and want to link to it, because your reach is suppressed, your nickname, your handle on various sites doesn't get autofilled, or doesn't show up in searches, things like that. Payment processing is always a nightmare, and trust in adult content creation has been severely damaged lately by OnlyFans being outed as using bots and basically telemarketer farms to handle people's naughty chat and so on. So they're subject to a class action lawsuit on that basis. So that's interesting. But I get some collateral damage from what goes on with adult creators, and it's incredibly frustrating for me. If you're an adult creator, I think you have to be very committed to put up with this stuff. Alright, on to the actual comments. On the Electric State review, Brian Moore says, nearly 5 minutes of blather about how you relate to nostalgia? Oh my god, get on with it. Look, if you want short, concise, snappy, overexcited reviews, you're in the wrong place. I try to bring my reactions. I try not to be shy about my influences and how my views on various things might be compromised or suspect. I think it's important to ground a review in where you're coming from, so you will get more conversational, more long-winded reviews from me, and you get your little score at the end. So if you don't like it, you can skip forward, or you can not watch my video. Blink twice if you've been duct taped to a chair with your eyelids forced open and someone's making you watch my reviews. Of course that's impossible given what I described, but you know what I mean. I did a little video sort of not previewing but mood setting for Ronin and describing some aspects of the system. Ace Up Inner Sleeves says, looks pretty cool. That little video pretty much answered my questions. Looking forward to that game. I will do some more videos talking about various aspects of the game as we go along, so you can look forward to being bored to tears by that, as I kill any hype you might have had for the game. On an old review for Blades in the Dark, Anabasis says, he's so biased and so unwilling that he can't understand it. I would absolutely abhor having to play with this individual. Well, I would absolutely abhor having to play these games most of the time. It's kind of ironic that they went back to that review after me talking about Apocalypse World and how Blades in the Dark is better than that, but still shit. And just doesn't do what I want from a role-playing game. So it's not that I can't understand it, it's that I do understand it and reject it on that basis. This seems to be a common sort of cognitive trap that people fall into. They assume that if you don't like something, it must be because you don't understand it, which is very condescending, I think. I mean, there are instances where you can not understand things, like dice mechanics or whatever else, but then there are other things, like the way the game is played, or the kind of play it encourages, and so on, which you can understand and then firmly reject. But people who are, for whatever reason, fanatically loyal to one system or another don't seem to be able to understand that, or they assume that their assumptions are universally held, but that's more of a burning wheel problem, I think. On the Discworld preview, La Biblioteca Eterna says, thanks for the preview review, I was curious about it. Talking about quick starts and previews, are you planning on talking about Monolith's Conan TTRPG? Their Kickstarter just launched a couple of days ago. So yeah, the Discworld crowdfunder is up now. Why Modiphius feels the need to crowdfund things, I don't know. Cheap marketing, possibly, but surely they can't need the money. But anyway, yeah, if you're looking for a loosey-goosey story-type system, which personally I found better suited to Discworld, then that's up and you can go back it. I don't plan on talking about Monolith's Conan TTRPG. I have the 2D20 Conan TTRPG and I have never played it so far at this point. If I was to choose Conan games, I would probably choose the 2D20 one for play and the Mongoose one for the information and background. Conan TTRPGs are a bit like Marvel TTRPGs. They're just kind of, one seems to come out with a completely different way of doing things every, I don't know, it's on some regular schedule anyway. It's clearly a much sought after property, but no one seems able to keep hold of it and to do anything truly amazing with it, and that's unfortunate. On the video where I was discussing Apocalypse World and Powered by the Apocalypse more in general, Liberal Hyena says, when can we look forward to the live play session? There will be one at some point, but if you want to see us struggle with a similar system and try to extract a decent game out of it, you can go and look at the Candela Obscura actual play over on Grimstreams. We did have a fun game, but it was really very little to do with the system, which kept getting in the way. On Boutique RPGs, which is one of those pretentious videos that I did, Jerome says, are there actually any distinctly right-wing TTRPGs? I ask this as a centrist who likes to see some balance in the world. There's My Farog, which is Varg Vikernes' D&D clone, now with racism, you know, where other people do things like address the lack of realism in combat or whatever other personal rules bugbear they've got. Varg just decided to throw some not completely explicit but fairly explicit racism into his fantasy game. It's not without its redeeming qualities. I mean, Charles Manson's music wasn't all terrible, but you know, it doesn't mean that much. But are there any distinctly right-wing TTRPGs? I'm trying to think of any. There was that Soviets take over the US and you rebel against them, which came out. Oh, was it Cry of Freedom, something like that. Yeah, that was very sort of Reagan-ish, but I don't think everyone who fantasized about fighting an occupation was necessarily right-wing. There are games that have been made by right-wing people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they contain right-wing ideas. There was that abortive, terrible Star Frontiers thing that never actually came out. The Bledsoes have some pretty virulently right-wing views on the Confederacy and various other things, but I don't think it was ever particularly in their gaming materials. Some people will say there's right-wing and far-right material in everything. They just basically hallucinate it and then believe it to be there. But I can't think of any distinctly right-wing RPGs. What would one even look like? This is the question. And I don't mean cartoonishly far right-wing. You know, even Reichstar wasn't really a right-wing TTRPG. It was just a world in which the Nazis had won. It didn't really say much about that one way or the other. Is military SF inherently right-wing? I don't think so. Is the World of Dust right-wing because the people that displaced and killed off the Nazis but are still fairly naughty Germans? You know, they're kind of the heroes if you read into the background, but is that what it is? I don't think so. I don't know that I know what a right-wing TTRPG would look like. Inherently capitalist? Is that right-wing? Yeah, I don't know. You get some crossover into the libertarian sort of side of things there. Religion, it would depend, I suppose. There have been biblical RPGs in the past. Is that something that's distinctly right-wing? I think that depends on your interpretation of religion. There's a Christian left in continental Europe, Christian socialists. So I don't know what would make something a distinctly right-wing TTRPG, and again, not cartoonishly right-wing, so, you know, answering things like, you know, blatant racism or whatever else isn't what I'm looking for here. What would make for a distinctly right-wing TTRPG that isn't a cartoon supervillain? Ace Up in a Sleeve says, I can appreciate people that understand that it's okay to be pretentious sometimes, but only if you insert a certain amount of self-deprecation in the introduction, though the French would disagree. A true English gentleman you are. Joking aside, I can only encourage any attempts at saying something relevant on the internet. Few content creators have your combination of critical thinking capacity and general lack of fury. This was very nutritious content. I must be in the minority, but all those things are just noise to me. My games, to me, are, namely, an escape from all the things towards which the hobby is headed. Anyway, I'm not the target audience. I'm mostly a DIY IRL GM, so my opinion doesn't matter. Yeah, everyone's opinion matters. And when you have nice things to say about me, it matters a great deal more than otherwise. I do YouTube wrong. This is well known and is a constant refrain on this channel, because I just do things that interest me, and I don't really chase the algorithm at all, which is why my channel is so small after so many years. We've had a nice bit of growth recently, which was lovely to see. So I just do it because these are things that interest me. I don't think I could sustain rage, foe or otherwise, for that long. And since the various historical attacks on me, I've tried to be the most reasonable person in any room that I enter, just for survival, really. But yeah, if anyone has any other deeper, more pretentious topics they want me to delve into, then let me know. Plus, it will help me gauge what people think is pretentious. We haven't had a lot of Kalergi comments recently, which has been a blessing, and the few that I have had haven't been worth replying to, but there's a few here, so let's get these out the way. Faire Jolie says, look up George Soros Open Borders Foundation. It's an actual factual thing happening right now all over the Western world and Eastern Europe. So I did. I looked it up. There is no George Soros Open Borders Foundation. I'm sure you're shocked to discover this information. What there is an Open Society Foundation, or more properly foundations. The Open Society Foundations were formerly the Open Society Institute. They're a US-based but international grant-making network founded by George Soros. They support not open borders, but civil society, welfare safety nets. They want to advance equality, justice, education, public health, independent media, all good stuff, right? And the only intersection with borders and immigration that I could find was them suggesting that immigrants should have a path to citizenship, a legal above-board path to citizenship, and advocating for the rights of immigrants. Oh noes. The group's name apparently was inspired by Karl Popper's 1945 book The Open Society and Its Enemies. I think people are just getting triggered by the word open and then making assumptions. Carolus, who has been quite prolific in his nonsensical and racist opinions on the Kalergi videos, says, what's your opinion on the fact that 40% of London's population is white? I mean, it's completely meaningless. It's also wrong. London is still over 50% white, and over 60% are born in Britain, but not all white, but born in Britain. And that goes up even higher. It was hard to find out exactly how much for people who are British citizens. And so what if it were true that only 40% of London's population was white? So what? Why would that matter? They seem to just kind of assume that this is a bad thing for some reason, and never articulate why. It's just kind of taken as read. But I don't have the same pin-headed racist assumptions that you do, so why should I care? Why does it mean anything? Then he goes on to say, so tell me why skin colours exist, Mr. Bollocks, after me saying that race is essentially meaningless. And another thing, bluebirds fly with bluebirds, redbirds fly with redbirds, swans with swans, storks with storks. All are birds, don't have intelligence like us, yet they stick with their own kind. We should do the same, right? Nature doesn't lie. Our kind is humans. Homo sapiens sapiens, right? The differences between me and a Kalahari Bushman are much less than the differences between your red and blue birds, which are different species and cannot interbreed. I am not a different species to a Dane, or someone from China, or an Indonesian, or a Brazilian, right? We're all human beings. We can all interbreed with no problems whatsoever. The differences between us are absolutely meaningless and minuscule, save at the absolute extremes of human specialization or the bleeding edge of medical technology. When it comes to transplantation and things like that, it matters. But day-to-day life, the differences between us are meaningless. Utterly, utterly meaningless. And we're not different species. Pearlfeather suggests that I'm wearing yarmulke under my hat. While, I as someone who has designed spaceships and so on for Traveller, I appreciate the idea of hat redundancy in case my primary hat suffers a catastrophic failure. But no, I'm not wearing a yarmulke. Now, I know it's cool at the moment to just hate on Jews because Israel are acting like dicks, not without reason, and their paranoia is not without reason. But I would, if anything, be flattered to be compared with such an accomplished and stubborn people. So you just give yourself away with comments like this. You should wait before you trigger the anti-Semitism. It's too obvious. Sang.
In the worlds before Monkey, primal chaos reigned. Heaven sought order, but the phoenix can fly only when its feathers are grown. The four worlds formed again and yet again, as endless eons wheeled and passed. Time and the pure essences of heaven, the moisture of the earth, the powers of the sun and moon, all worked upon a certain rock, old as creation, and it became magically fertile. That first egg was named Thought. The God Buddha, the Father Buddha said, "With our thoughts we make the world." Elemental forces caused the egg to hatch. From it then came a stone monkey, and the nature of monkey was irrepressible.
Irrepressible is a simple RPG of fortune cookie wisdom and martial arts, taken from Journey to the West. You can buy it at lulu.com, post-mort.com, and drive-through RPG.